I'm going to be asking you more about that. But you've been on this job, I think, for only about 14 months. In that time, you've spent time on the ground,
Feels
boots on the
like
ground.
1 minute. It feels like 2 months and like 20 years at the same time.
Right, I'm sure. But what
Yeah.
does it feel like? What are you seeing when you're out there, boots on the ground? What picture do you want to paint to our viewers?
This is what I see. On the one hand, I see terrible impacts for children all around the world. And it's certainly not just COVID, although COVID has had a very dramatic impact, which people don't ordinarily think about because they don't think of children as the people who suffer the most from COVID. And that's true. But what we've seen is about 100 million families plunged into poverty because of COVID. We've seen children not getting their routine vaccinations. We've seen children, in situations where their schools are closed for months, months, months on end. And so they've lost so much education. One number that I use, which is so horrifying to think about, but 70% of 10-year-olds in the world now have trouble reading and understanding a very simple sentence or doing simple math calculations. That lost learning is a dramatic, terrible problem for children, and we're working hard to try to address that. So I see that. I see conflicts. Ukraine, obviously, that's in the news every day now. People see that. But it's not the only one. We still have problems in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Yemen, where children are really suffering. Conflict is one of the worst things for children because it upsets and unsettles all of the services that children rely on. So whether that's medical services or nutrition or education, all those things, children are very vulnerable to that sort of disruption. And finally, I have seen, and I didn't fully appreciate this before I got in the job, I've seen the impact of climate change and climate disruption on children and their families. And I was in Ethiopia last year. It was really shocking to see how dry it was, to see the animals in these communities dying, and the people aren't that far behind, right? And so what happens? They pick up and they move to other places. So all of these things are coming together, and we talk about it as like a poly crisis, a confluence of crisis, whatever you want to call it. It's a very, very difficult time to be a child in the world right now, and we are working hard to try to address it. Now, the upside is that I do feel like UNICEF knows what to do. We have, decades of experience, right? We know how to have an impact in these situations, but trying to first get the attention and then mobilize the resources is the challenge.